Hello, everyone. Today is March 16th. I'm here with Brian, and we're going to be talking about motivation. How we doing, Brian?
Good. What the fuck is up, Denny's? How we doing today?
The Denny's Grand Slam. What I wouldn't have paid to be there.
Yeah. The one that made me shit my pants like 20 minutes later, just work its way through my system like oh god, like a baby wipe in a British sewer, just expands.
Jeez, I don't know anything about that. I don't think I've been to IHOP maybe once. I don't think I've ever been to a Denny's.
Yeah, I don't. There's none around me, at least not that I can remember. I think the only one that was by me actually turned into Chris Belly's, so just a local like bakery type deal. So
Yeah, do love me some Waffle House anytime I vacation and go south.
yeah, literally like as soon as you get over the Ohio border, there's one, isn't there? Like in
I think
Toledo.
so.
Yeah, right on. Maybe it's not Toledo, it's Sylvania. Anyway, yeah. Love me some Waffle House. Love me going there at nighttime where there's a 1,000% chance of watching a fist fight occur between the staff and somebody who, who's just asking, I don't know, for a free cup of coffee.
Yeah, our version of that was Steak and Shake. We used to go back when we had just graduated from high school. We would have these poker games a few times a week at someone's house, and we'd be up till 3 or 4 in the morning, hanging out, playing poker or euchre or whatnot. And then we would go to like a local burger place here that used to be open 24 hours called Bray's. Not the same one that's somewhere over in Detroit. I think this one is different. It was like an actual sit-in restaurant, and they did breakfast and everything. But we used to go to the Steak and Shake in Livonia, and we go in there and we sit down. The waitress gives us the menus. He's like, "Yeah, the cooks both got into a fight outside, so I can't cook anything." I'm like, "Well, what?" And then this group that was in there with us too, they're like, "Well, we're about to go back there. We're gonna cook the food ourselves. Y'all want anything?" And my buddy was just freaking out. It was just like having a panic attack. He's like, "I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here." Um,
No, this is where I would want to be. This is entertainment.
yeah, no, it's crazy, but I mean that's just kind of the restaurant industry. I My first job was a busser at Texas Roadhouse when I was 16, and not that anything like really happened, but yeah, the culture of the people that work there at these restaurants is quite a bit different. Somebody could be a really good cook, but could also be, uh, I guess it's the same anywhere, but yeah, that was not a great experience. I would not want to work at a restaurant. I know people can make good money being a bartender or server, but yeah, kind of like the work lifestyle of being there is kind of crazy. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Waiting. I'm assuming you have, but I'm also assuming that might be a little bit too old of a movie for some of our audience.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it myself, but definitely on my list. Maybe. Do you think would you consider that an underrated piece of media?
No, I can't consider anything that has Dane Cook in it to be underrated. That's just me. But it's one of and also it's Justin Long, so it's just kind of your millennial comedy movie, early 2000s comedy movie. Uh, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Long, Dane Cook, Luis Guzman. There were a few other actresses in there. I don't know if they're still around or making anything. Well, actually, the woman that was in that's the mom in the Ted TV show. She was one of the waitresses because it's a movie about working at a restaurant, and they had this game where they would like set up around a corner or something, and you try to get like somebody to look at. I'm not even going to talk about it, but it's funny. But it is also kind of they use some language that's not exactly PC anymore. So just be prepared for that if you do plan on watching it. I'm not recommending anyone to actually watch it, but it is in terms of restaurant culture, I think it sums it up, or it's very comedic with it.
Oh wait, I have seen Wait. I'm sorry, I thought you said something else. But when you started describing like the actors and actresses, I have seen Waiting. Yeah, it's yeah, very very. Apparently, that was based mostly based on a true story. Not like true story, but like the person who like wrote and directed it. They just based on experiences that they had working for. I think it was a Bennigan's or maybe it's an Applebee's, one of those kind of chain restaurants. And a lot of that happened while he worked there.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. But
Um,
speaking on motivation, I think a lot of times I can get distracted, and I know it's like,
yeah, that was my bad.
no, it's not. It's just kind of how I am. And like we were just talking about before we started recording, it's like, is that bad? Because it's good conversation for the podcast, but also not staying on task. So is it just kind of the nature of the conversation? Is it something that I want to work on to make sure like we stay on task for these things? And somebody's going to look up this episode and be like, oh, motivation and how it how it works and all this other stuff. And then you hear us talking about the movie waiting for 5 minutes to start off the episode.
Yeah, it's it's gonna be like the first like 10 episodes or whatever is like us just like coming down and like devolving and getting ADHD or something like that. Not that I think that ADHD makes you any less of a person or a human being. I don't think that. I just like I kind of feel like that linear regression is there for us specifically.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain I have ADD, and it's another one of those things where it's hard to tell. Do I have ADD or do I just don't have good habits for staying on task, staying motivated? Because even if they did have me checked out when I was younger for ADD, but they said like I function at a high level. You know, I wasn't causing scenes in class. I wasn't acting out or doing anything, and I was like really good at my schoolwork. So, but it's hard to tell. Like with me, it's harder for so doing the coding boot camp. It's like I can't sit here and learn to code myself. I've tried it a long time, and that's why sports in high school were good because that was scheduled. Coach told you it's time to stretch. Coach said you're going to do this drill. You go to a game, you know what position you're playing, you have the muscle memory and everything. Like that's great. That was all set up to have some direction. But then when you get out of it, it's like, okay, well, I'm done with work on Friday. It's 5 p.m. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like I have all the freedom to do whatever it is I want. And a lot of the times it comes down to just I either made plans to go out and do something or I'm going to sit here and play video games. Like, there's not too many times that I'm wanting to work on things. So it's very hard to convince myself, like, okay, you know, I need to read or check in with people about these job referrals, um, you know, or doing something, I guess, that's productive. So I talked about it a little bit before we got on, but I'd like to start journaling again, setting a schedule for myself. I I was watching TikTok too much. I don't even want to look at the analytics because it was probably like 3 hours a day, and have had to have set a time limit on how much I can watch a day. And now it's like 15 minutes. So it's like I'm an iPad kid and I'm also setting screen time limits on myself. So then that's another thing that kind of detracts like, okay, well, it's good that I've set these things, but why can I also not just stop watching TikTok so much?
Yeah, I mean it's they used to have back in the day for in the refrigerator if you like opened it up in the middle of the night, like a little pig alarm will go off, to alert like your partner or your roommate that you're trying to get into the food if you're like dieting or something. Yeah, this is a real thing. Um, because my my brother, he used to be as chunky as I am. He's lost a whole bunch of weight, but his roommate, every time like he would go uh into the refrigerator, he would always, as a joke, set that it's like a little pig alarm, and then it's like a motion sensor almost. opens, you open the refrigerator, it just starts like going off, and I go oink 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 oink. This, this is what they had back in the. It's not like we have.
Yeah, yeah,
We can set like a code on our refrigerator so our fat solo partner can't get in there and get ice cream at night. Um,
yeah. I'd be interested. Maybe that's a good idea to set something up too, with like a because I have an alarm on my phone at like 9 p.m. for like just setting it so that I know it's time to breathe, time to wind down. Um, but I would be interested in setting like something that will turn off my computer because I'm on it quite a bit and not doing things that are productive a lot of the time. So most of my productivity exists outside of using my computer. But setting something up to be like, okay, at 6 p.m., it's going to turn off and it won't turn back on until you go to the grocery store. So maybe like connecting it to like my Kroger app, and then it recognizes the purchase and then will allow me to use my computer again. Like, I think that would be helpful. But I also know with talking about these things and bad habits that we're just continuously doing stuff just automatically all the time, that maybe the alarm or the 15 minutes I allow myself to look at TikTok every day, maybe that is good. That a lot of people have issues of just doom scrolling on their phone. So that's a way to kind of interrupt and break that cycle.
yeah. I don't know if you're like on intellectual TikTok or if you're just scrolling through the funnies. Maybe maybe do like a wake up 15 minutes. You set another alarm, and then you do 15 minutes at night, or 7.5 minutes, and then 7.5 minutes at day. Kind of break it up to your day. That way, it's kind of farther apart, but it still gives you the wanting of being able to do it, and you can maybe do some energy scrolling, get some laughs going, get your mood better up in the morning, and then wind down TikToks tonight. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know what algorithm looks like, but maybe try to work both your left and right brain, different parts of the day.
Yeah, maybe. I like toy around with it a little bit, but I think the other thing that we were talking about too is just like the being overwhelmed and then spiraling. So your brain freezing, thinking like, "Oh, I can't do this because there's too much to do." You just kind of freeze instead of breaking things down into smaller steps to be able to accomplish these things, and kind of like the self-love that you have for yourself, that okay, I am here, I'm trying to get to here, and I'm only right here, but I know I can continue making small improvements to get to where I want to be. And I think, yeah, sometimes it's hard to really understand if this is like a realization that I have, where it's like the realization of me not being able to stop myself by myself from scrolling on TikTok, or if I'm just being overly critical of myself. So it's like trying to read more into it, I guess, and getting more of an understanding of where I'm at. But I also could just be, more self deprecating than is healthy.
Yeah, there's healthy amount of balance for anything, right? Like, you can get down on yourself, but then it's also good to recognize the humor in that. Um, it, One thing that has really helped me, not lately, I can get into that story in a minute, but I've kind of had some regression as far as my own personal development, but shit happens. But one thing that was helping me when I was successful was just kind of giving myself the grace to figure it out. Um, I'm very impatient, and so when something doesn't go my way, or something inconveniences me to take it of whatever I'm doing, um, I I wasn't giving my before I wasn't giving myself any grace at all, to learn these new things, kind of accept that I'm not going to be able to be good or make this change right away, just kind of slowing things down. So that's one thing that help me. since we started this whole adventure of holding ourselves accountable and, kind of talking through these things on this podcast. So for last 10 or 11 weeks or more, I've been giving myself grace to that, I don't need to, I don't need to go sneak out of my bedroom, tell my wife that I have to go to the bathroom, make a plate of nachos, and then just crush those in the time that I'm gone, and then sneak back up with I have crumbs in my face. Um, you know, or that I don't have to drink that extra can of water, sorry, not can, but extra glass of water because I'm really probably not that thirsty and I'm going to be up all night peeing. So, even small things, little things like that, to just help me not be, a big old fatso that I am currently.
Oh no, I mean, and in terms of, I don't know, your body, your fat composition, because I deal with it too. Looking at the scale and kind of being shaming myself, like, what happened to those 3 pounds that I was down, and I've regained it with weight fluctuations and everything. But yeah, I mean, it is the balance of trying to find out things that work for you, and it is harder. It is a lot harder to manage and look at these things, and I've not really envious of where people are at in their finances or fitness or whatever, because we all deal with different stuff that we have to go through in our lives, and how much are we set up for success in a way that um, we have these habits as we age. And some people are just lucky enough to be taught healthy habits, are in a good enough of a position to not have as much to stress about. And yeah, with increased stress that comes from anything, it's going to be disrupting to anybody's routine. But for me, at least, I think it's going to come down to like more journaling, more, putting things down when I have a thought about something that I think might be a realization, might be more self-deprecating, and also just breaking the spiral, or breaking the cycle of spiraling, because I do freeze a lot when I think about the things that I want to get done, because yeah, I want to basically just take a shotgun to everything that I have to do and just like blast and like done. Like, I'm behind on laundry, I'm behind on dishes, I need to clean the dishes, I need to go grocery shopping, I need to get to the gym. And these are just kind of thoughts that I have in my head, and they don't really materialize into anything. So it's definitely something else that I'm going to have to look at, balance, and manage. And yeah, maybe there is some opportunities, or maybe even some companies, app ideas for getting you to stop doing these things, because the context of it too is like, I'm on TikTok too often. I set a limit on how much I'm able to be on there, but that's good. It's great. But I also don't, that doesn't correlate to me doing more. In like, the time lost on TikTok is probably just going to be spent on doing other things that aren't as productive. So at least it's what I was thinking of. Um, and
Um,
yeah, I'm just, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, I get a bunch of crossroads. Like, I just got into a pretty ugly argument with my partner, my wife, earlier this week. So, that really kind of set me in a depression or certain mind state. Be like, it wasn't about anything even in particular, like, of consequence. We were supposed to go on vacation in July, but the people we're going with are some of her family, and it gets kind of dicey when that subject comes up. And this particular side of the family wasn't nice to us the last time that we saw them, and it's kind of been that way for a while. So I took a stance of not wanting to go because they treat us like shit, to be quite frank. Um, and but she makes my wife makes the argument. It's a good one of it's her family. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of vacation with her family, but um, at the same time, it's they treat us horribly, and it's I'm not going to stand for that. Like I'm not going to want to be around that on a vacation, stepping on
No,
eggshells and, you know, not relaxing. I'm just stressing about that, right? And that's going to send me on a spiral if I go there. So it's recognizing for me to not put myself in that situation. Obviously, easier said than done, but when you kind of have that mindset, so when you, or at least tell yourself in the back of your head when you're spiraling like that, just it has to come at right timing, and then you have to take it one step at a time. Um, it's easier to think about, all the credit card debt that I have, and that my son has some motor function delays. Speech delays. Still, he's 4 years old. He's getting ready to go into kindergarten as soon as coming. I think this summer. Um, and like, how are we going to pay for this vacation if we do go on it? It's when I started thinking about all those, it's like, well, my son's right here right now. I can always help. He's always going to come first. Let's do that, and then let's worry about paying some debt down. But we also, and then we start saving for this vacation. So, um, breaking it down like that has always helped me not to be better about not spiraling, because let's be honest, I still do it anyway. I just did it recently. So um, it's kind of like the yin and yang episode. I like to think of David is going up and I feel like I'm going down.
no, I don't. I don't think it's like that. If you look at, I think about it in ways of like the stock market. Over time, the S&P 500 returns about um, whatever it is, like 10% a year, but it's not every year that it does it. There are down years, there's recessions, there's market bubble pops, but if you look at since the creation of the S&P 500 year, it goes up about 10%. But you're having to look at these in time horizons, like a large amount of time. So I do think it is the kind of the ebbs and the flows that happen with personal improvement. And to say like it's very hard for me to look at and visualize like where I was at last year or a few months ago and where I'm at right now, because a lot of things are not really being seen, you know? Like I do have more money saved. I have been better mentally, but I also haven't been to the gym in a few weeks. I had a disruption from getting sick. Me and Eric were working that job over the weekends. I started using my walking pad, like, and it's just constant shifting and finding a new balance. Because yeah, I mean, today I feel like I haven't done as much as I wanted to, and there's like some days that we talked about before, trying to find that self love that you have of you are working to be better, and this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's easy to look and compare yourself with other people, be on social media or whatever, and yeah, some people are doing very well financially, or seeing people that are in the gym constantly and they look good and what have you. But it's hard to really connect with how much work that comes with it, like each day. So yeah, changing a habit that you've had ingrained in you for however many years and taking the steps to identify and work on these things is tough. And that's just kind of the reality of it. It's harder to be able to do those things, to not spend as much money, to not eat terribly, to take the time to, because that's where I get at. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do things unless I write them down. They're on the forefront of my brain. I'm reminded of them. All this, but like that's taking more time than actually doing it. And I don't want to have to take more time instead of just doing it. So that's kind of like the mentally, like the struggle that I have all the time. Like I argue with myself constantly all throughout the day. I don't know if that's normal or not, but I'm like constantly like, the devil and the angel on my shoulders are just continuously bickering.
Yeah, I get that. And it's also one of my terrible habits that I do instantly is especially more often, obviously, when I'm feeling down or feel sad, sorry for myself, is comparing myself to others. You know, I can look at my coworkers on my immediate team and see somebody who is a plumber, makes money doing that on the side. Um, you know, if I was complaining about being too busy, well, there's a girl is who roller skates for Flint Derby. I think I talked about her on the last episode. I see somebody who works for their parents as a their woodworking company, and then I see girl with graphic design and she has a successful side business. I see all of these things, and all of these people are able to manage that and not completely come apart. Um, and it just makes me feel worse about myself. So, you know, um, especially I've been so depressed lately. I've been getting down hard on my health, getting down on myself. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Um, of not being a great parent, of not being a great communicator, of not being this, not being that. So it's a spiral I'm working my way out of currently. But it, just feeling depressed, honestly. Really no other way to describe that. And I haven't been as happy, and it's really nothing one subject in particular. So
I don't. I don't. I don't know. With it, I think I know. At least for me, like I don't set myself up for enough success, and like with all the learning that I've done and being able to apply these things, like I said, it's hard to really understand where I'm at compared to where I was before. Because I'm like, constantly worried about the future. Like, don't think about or don't look at the past as much. Because there was a time where I was, in high school or in college and I was skinnier. I didn't have as much to worry about. Um, there's now, and I need to make a trip to Turkey to get a hair transplant here in a few years. So this
yeah,
whole
no kidding.
podcast and the success is predicated on the motivation for doing it is just for me to have enough money to go get a hair transplant. Maybe I'll stop over and get some leg lengthening surgeries and stuff because where I where I get at like most of the days is I'm only 5'4", having a receding hairline, male pattern baldness. So there are things that I can do for it, but I don't really want to take medication or add in any more into my routine than I already have. But there's some things each day. It's like I do have control over this, but I don't control how tall I am. I can't control my genetics at all. So there are a lot of times, constantly being reminded about these things. And I know it's just kind of how people look at you because most of our senses are visual. Um, it's like, yeah, I mean, I can't do anything, so I don't worry about it. And the things that I can do, I try not to worry about it either because I can get around and I can get into doing it. Well, like I said, I mean, it's with how many decisions that we make every day, and not all of them are going to be healthy for us. I mean, I know I'm Dave, but I'll be frank for a second. Like, yeah, not every decision that we make each day is going to be healthy, but maybe say yesterday I made four unhealthy decisions. Today I've only made two. And then trying to like look and understand because there's so much to do with just trying to rewire your brain. I wish I was thinking about it too, with trying to do like a dopamine detox, like no nicotine, no alcohol, no screens. I was continuously putting together more supplies to be able to go hiking. So I'm planning on doing something like that to a place that's like an hour away and I can stay overnight at. And yeah, maybe just take some mushrooms or something, and hopefully my brain just rewires. Like, because it has been very hard to kind of work around my brain because it's been working against me for so long. I'm in a negative feedback loop with nicotine. I was in a positive feedback loop with exercise for a while, but it's so easy for getting a good habit, staying on a good routine with a good habit. It's so much easier to fall out of it than it is for a routine with a bad habit. It's just not fair. It's not fair, Brian. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. It's vicious, vicious cycle. This brain of ours. Yeah, you're right. It's our worst enemy, but it's also our best friend. But it's ultimately up to us to kind of figure out our path. I know that number of like I almost said Mr. Strange. Doctor Strange from Infinity War said, number of universes that he visited, or number of outcomes that for them to be victorious was 15,604. I think it was, and the only all those times that they were defeated, and out of all of those, only one was when they were victorious. So there could be a million different ways, but it's all about trial and error and figuring it out. I know we've kind of talked about that in the past, but um, unfortunately, if there's somebody who is feeling maybe enough to take their own life, if there's somebody to that point, maybe I don't know. It's not. I hope no one ever gets to that point. I was at that point during my unemployment when I was drinking, um, you know, uh, but taking kind of a step back and realizing that I would leave my son behind, I couldn't do that. So that's kind of what took me off the brink of that. So, um, you know, there are people who have done that, and it takes a different kind of courage that I don't know that I would have. But I hope it never ever gets to that point for and you are way healthier than that. And if you ever get to that point, there's always hope. There's always going to be a different option. So, um, yeah, like I, sorry, getting on a little tangent. Uh, yeah, it's funny to think that something that we seem or always want to pretend that we're in charge of or in control of is our brain, but it's always working against us. And then when we think it's not, sometimes it might be doing the best thing, but it's like a whole spiral that I'm going on, just trying to figure out all the different paths, all the different things that kind of work against us on a daily.
Yeah, I think thinking about it in a way that allowing your brain to understand what's available for you to do. So getting in a good habit of going to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. It's like, oh, your brain's like, oh, we can do this. Like, this is good. This is great. I like this. And you continue to go. But it is something where you have to be in a good mental state. You have to be in a good physical state to, get up and have the motivation to actually go and do it. I think for me, a lot of times it's just the introduction of nicotine, caffeine, alcohol in some degree that my brain knows is available. And that's when you start getting cravings, you start developing these habits. And yeah, it kind of works against you in a way. Not to say that it's my brain's fault, but you have to, work against it. I've introduced something, these bad things that your brain enjoys or that your body enjoys. You become addicted to it, and trying to break the cycle of addiction for everything is very tough. I know you've been sober for quite some time, so that's quite the accomplishment because I know how hard it is for me to limit my drinking, and yeah, I've kind of slipped with that as well. And yeah, I mean it's not healthy. Obviously, it's not good financially. It's not good. Dealing with the how I hungover I feel the next day. So I mean that's coming back into getting rid of that habit. And I think with the motivation and everything, like people have gone to therapy or have gotten life coaches or trainers for the gym, and really like that sense of community or somebody that kind of is working with you to help you out, whether it's mentally, physically, or just financially or in life in general. So I think I get to be very stubborn in knowing that I am, I consider myself not very, I consider myself an intelligent person, but in doing so, I think it's easier for me to, do mental gymnastics or convince myself what I'm doing is not that bad. And at the same time, I don't want to shame myself and then just start gorging on the things that I've been trying to limit, um, and then falling back in kind of like that cycle. So, yeah, sorry to hear about your mental state when you were unemployed for so long, but it's tough for a lot of people. We right now for employment and feeling like these companies like don't want them. They're not needed. They're not worthy of just being able to work.
Yeah, it was definitely a surreal experience, kind of out of body almost at times. I, I've spent the past year or so talking about being unemployed, and it was only 4.5 months. But I wasn't in a good financial state for it to really happen. I don't want to say it was unexpected because it really wasn't, but, because I had lost all motivation to do less, like I didn't feel like I was mentally incentivized to work harder or do anything extra, just because people are so busy, never had time for help, just like interaction with management, all that stuff. So, um, you know, it, it really wasn't a great time for me, but I think at the same time, it was also a perfect time for me because it kind of brought me back to my hustle days, like when I worked at a card store. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to afford anything, and I was still living at my parents at the time. So I kind of had to flip that paycheck into buying magic card collections and buying old collectibles, um, and selling them on eBay. Really stretching my dollar far. It kind of brought that sense back because I know that I have a lot of skills. I'm great with people. When my brain doesn't want to fail me. And so it really brought back that kind of almost survival instinct that I missed of sink or swim. And I kind of lost that when I went corporate. Like, I know that sounds weird. Like, kind of once I got past that barrier of like $50,000 in my head that I had to earn to, like, be able to feel confident talking to my friends that I work at a card store and telling them how much I make. When they're all talking about 401ks and having sick bennies, all like I didn't have any of that. I had to pay for it all in my pocket, so I had to take my dollar and make it 10. But it brought back that instinct. It also made me think that there's a new trend apparently called micro employment, where it's like people will work up to 4 different jobs for 40 plus hours a week, all as part time or contract. I thought that was interesting because it's definitely kind of, I've been hearing that a lot where it's like people have to go from one teaching job to another or one nursing home to another. Um, but that's might be a different topic for a different episode. Um, so I anyway, getting back to my point is that it brought back that it's their survival instinct in me. So I do working part time job, but I also, or sorry, full time job, but I also have a side business. Even though I've kind of taken, or in, you know, taking on a little bit less projects every month. Um, I'm still making money on the side, so, and I have a steady stream of income coming in, and I'm getting better prepared financially. Paying off debt and just saving more.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, being unemployed, like you said, like it was only 4.5 months for you, but yeah, I mean it's tough when the stakes are higher. When you have bills that you have to pay, when you don't know, having your son or your wife or whatever, if things come up with her business or if there's some sort of medical emergency or whatnot. Um, so yeah, I mean it is tough, and kind of that feeling that you had a job before, and people that are unemployed right now, even if they are working for a company, it's probably not going to be the best experience because there's so many variables to think about with these positions. A lot of people now that still have a job being overworked, underappreciated. A lot of companies trying to do more with less people. So my hope is that we'll have more of an expanse as people start to come around to understand that you can't really make enough at a corporate type job, and you are going to have to hustle and you're 5 to 9, starting your own company or working together with other people that they have companies and stuff. Because I think, I'm sure you feel this too, but working for yourself or working with a friend and taking the steps to kind of accomplish what it is that you are trying to do. With a website, you have the steps to say you finish the contact page or the about us page, and you have that like small sense of achievement. And it's also the only thing that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about a manager coming down on you about something, or them asking you to do more and not wanting to pay you more money, or and emails from however many different people coming in. So with working with Eric on the painting job, it was fun. Kind of experiment with what we were doing. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. Or, let's try to get some steps in to how we're going to tackle, now that we've learned throughout the job, how long this is actually going to take, how many coats of paint we're actually going to have to use. Let's set ourselves up for success. Let's start with priming everything so that by the time it dries, we can go back around and hit it with white paint real quick so we can get this done and over with as soon as possible. And just, continued learning and just being there, and, we're just playing music and bullshitting while working. And it is like been very, it was very cool, but that's not to say that, Eric didn't, he put a lot of work into being able to bid this job, convince the person that we would do a good job. And there's a lot of other factors that come with it too. But um, yeah, if you're willing to hustle and you take necessary steps into starting, growing, building, like there is a lot of that sense of achievement that comes with it. But if just keeping the stakes as low as possible, as much as you can, while you're going through and you're learning these things. How do you, for painting or for these websites, what do you have to say? How do you communicate to really make the person trust and understand that they're getting a good value for what they're paying you to do?
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. I kind of thought about. So it's kind of interesting seeing how intelligent um, you know tradespeople are. Let me preface this by saying I don't think tradespeople are, again, any lesser or dumber or somehow not as smart as, like,
You could
as a
go
joke.
anywhere in any company, any field, and there's going to be some fucking dumb people. Like
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
not
Right.
there's not a correlation between how far somebody up is in a company and how intelligent they are. I think we all kind of experienced that, and it have met very intelligent people in a lot of other fields than that. So yeah, I mean, you would never suggest, and I would never suggest either part of that, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. But it's interesting, like, because like it's always the perception that someone is smart because they're good at tests or they're good at memorizing certain things, like having a photogenic memory, and it will take all these, always do homework and complete tasks and simple assignments on time when you're in school, obviously, and then you get a grade for that. Well, especially with now that I'm kind of working in like a commodities business where I do kind of interact with a lot of tradespeople, it's it's interesting to kind of watch them work and have to figure out, to problem solve like instantly, right? Like hammering a nail isn't going to be the same time or same thing 100 times out of 100. You're going to have to work through different problems. Maybe it's not going to go on one strike. Maybe you have to hit it 2 or 3 times. Maybe I miscalculated where this stud is going to be. So it's like, or even, if I saw through this, let me make sure that like I'm, not sawing through anything. Or if we kind of drill into this flange is gonna be more piping that gets ripped out. Like there's always seem to be able to figure out this stuff kind of on the fly. And obviously when it's a paying customer and they were only expecting to have like a $500 bill, but now all of a sudden they weren't expecting, now I have to pay $1,500 because you couldn't figure this problem out, right? Like there's that kind of stakeholder at play. So they have to be able to, keep that cost down for that customer, but also be able to, on the fly fix this without maybe showing some kind of like, regret or not knowing what you're doing. I'm very envious of that because it reminds me a lot of coding and, you know, data analysis, right? Like sometimes these things are going to be trial and error, and not as cut and dry as you think. Like there's going to be having a lot of problems to solving, or coding where it's like, okay, this code isn't rendering how I thought. How do I figure it out? Or what kind of code do I have to write to actually get this to how the UI designer drew it up? So, um, kind of the same thing when it comes to the intelligence of tradespeople. So, um, you know, problem solving isn't also just about being at work, right? Like if you're at the gym, how am I going to be able to get to the next rep or next pound up for a lift? Uh there's a lot of different ways to kind of measure intelligence, and even more to measure success. You know, but I think all the common denominators of them are learning from your failures, learning from your things that you need to work on, and then breaking them down a step at a time. And it's just 1-0 every time. It's kind of like a football mentality. We're here to win the rep. We're here to win the quarter. We're here to win the game, right? Like it's one step at a time.
Of course. Yeah, I think we spoke about it before, right? But if your thought is to get rich and you don't adequately plan as to how you're going to be able to do that, instead you're buying lottery tickets or you're buying a bunch of these penny stocks, convincing yourself that you're going to return 10 times your money. And I've been there. I was in the GameStop thing in, what was it, 2021, I think is when all that was happening. And I turned $1,200 into 38 grand and turned that 38 grand into 4 grand. So there's a lot of, so I mean, I'd lost most of it is what I was meaning. So,
Oh, I
um,
was trying to figure out if you meant like,
yeah, no, no, it wasn't a mistake for what I was saying, but it was a mistake not to get out because, yeah, I was doing it with my emotions. I didn't have and you hear about it with people that have won the lottery is that they lose a lot of it too because they've not had access to that amount of money before.
yeah, yeah, it was, they say that like 99% or some absurdly high number of lottery winners end up losing all of that money and more within a year.
Yeah. It happens with professional athletes. Families continuing to ask for money. It ruins the relationships that they have with their families because they have gotten, a lot more money than anyone in the family could ever dream of. So, kind of like when that stuff comes around, um, New Year's resolutioners having a plan to eat better or go to the gym more or kind of having other things that they think about and want to do. And they don't plan around the steps that it takes to actually do it. But I think a lot of the things that we do each day just kind of come down to, listening, being present, listening to your body and trying to work through these things. Because even if you go through, like the dead internet theory where the internet's kind of dead and they're just trying to sell you on anything. So you try to look these things up and it'll be like, oh, yeah, here's 2 steps on how to accomplish that. If you want to pay for the next 3 steps, subscribe to my Patreon. It's like, well, how can I really trust that I'm getting good information or you're just trying to sell me on this thing, even without just because you paid to get your website higher in the Google ranking algorithm. So it is tough to really do things for yourself and find good information because a lot of times I feel like they're just trying to sell me something. It's like not only do I have to get a gym membership, but now I have to pay for like fucking Fit Fred's top 100 guide to getting absolutely shredded for the summer. You know, so either way, like I said, I mean, I'll start making a journal and start scheduling things out. Maybe like Monday will be my grocery shopping day. Sunday will be my laundry day. Tuesday will be um, something. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet, but we'll work on it, and then I'll come back for it. Maybe I'll make it public for everyone to check in my progress. But yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of it.
subscribe to his Patreon. I'm just kidding. We don't have one.
Yeah, subscribe to my Patreon, $5 a month, so you can see about how I've managed to jerk off less this month than previously.
That's the OnlyFans one where David rewards himself by not jerking off 10 days in a row by jerking off in front of a camera, for one.
Yeah, I did get one of those scam emails. They're like, you horny little fucker, we caught you on your webcam jerking off, and we're gonna send this to everybody unless you pay us. I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck, man. I don't think I'm held in high regard enough in most people's minds to really for them to look at that and think less of me.
Right.
I'm already kind of pretty open about who I am, what I'm up to, and everything. So it's like, whatever. But I think just trying to end on kind of a good note here. So I'm going to get back into journaling. I'm going to have to look and set up some steps on the progress that I want to take. I definitely want to get back into the gym, and I'll probably set a goal for myself of getting in at least one day this week. I think what's pretty cool too is I have this app, 18 Birdies, for when I go golfing, and it sets goals for myself. And those goals are like very realistic as to the score that I usually shoot, which is usually in like the mid to high 90s. So it's like, oh, you accomplished your goal. You got 2 pars. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, but
Yeah.
that is more realistic to like what I'm trying to accomplish instead of like, you know, I need to lose 10 pounds before the end of March. I'm just not going to eat anything, or I'm going to take a bunch of laxatives or whatever. It's like, yeah, you can't get healthy by doing unhealthy things. And that is just unhealthy. Your goals have, at least in my mind, I think your goals have to be aligned with doing things that are healthy for each step along the way. And sometimes contextually, it's hard. Even at my job, I get faced with questions all the time about like, well, why is X doing Y? Well, because of this. Or how do we know that we're getting better at podcasting stuff? It's like we could gain an audience, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting we're doing better in the podcast space. I know it's a way to measure success because you want to grow your audience, but who's to say we are better than we were a few weeks ago. I truly believe we are, but how do I look at the steps that I want to take to be able to speak more clearly, speak more concisely? And it just comes with more reps and being able to train uh, for public speaking stuff, using less filler words, writing down what I want to say, thinking about what I want to say instead of just winging it. Because my whole life I've been able to just wing it, but where has that gotten me? It's gotten me to be about 40 pounds overweight. Um, can't stick with my goals. We're just out here winging it, man. I'm gonna drive up to the gas station, grab me a 6 pack, a few zins, come back and just it's so easy for my mind, I think, to just go into the automatic mode and not have to worry about it as much. But trying to find a healthier way to worry, I guess not worry, but a healthier way to think about where I need to be at and who I'm trying to become.
Yeah, it's kind of like, to sum up this episode, it's kind of easy to, spiral out of control of it, especially with things that we may or may not have control over. Things we make things easier, we just focus on the things that we can control. If we can, if I can, like I said earlier, stop myself from eating a burrito and microwaving it, um, and do that maybe 5 less times per week, which is the exact number I do it each week. Um, like, or even if it's 4, I guess that's progress. But really, just need to stop eating those midnight burritos. They'll really get you. So, you know, uh, one step at a time, and that's all you can really tell yourself to get better, and not tell yourself anything less.
Yeah. And just the realization that anything that seems like it's too quick to be able to do things, because realistically, like a pound a week for weight loss is pretty realistic. You're going to start off losing a lot more by changing your eating habits, your physical activity habits, and whatnot. But when you start to get plateaued a little bit, and then you're going to have to become even more restrictive. And I don't recommend you do this, but I was logging my meals into MyFitnessPal for a while, and it really gives you a better perspective on what it is that you're actually putting in your body, how many calories you're actually ingesting, or sodium or fat. And I eventually just stopped doing it because I'm like, well, I'm not going to put in this meal I just got from McDonald's because I'm going to feel so bad about how many calories it's going to tell me I'm eating. And you're like, you're 2 times your sodium for the day. What are you doing, you fat fuck? Like, yeah, but it was helpful for a time, but it just comes with more. It doesn't take more time, but you just got to have that step in your mind mentally into doing it. Having a step to journal every day, or set up a schedule for yourself, or log your meals, setting a fucking timer on TikTok. So I was watching too many like cat videos or dog videos or whatever. And it's not to say that it's bad, but eventually it is.
Yeah, maybe we should watch a few less dog videos or cats. Either way, metaphorically, literally, we gotta stop watching less TikToks and start doing more pull-ups.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said before, when I was a kid, I'd be playing Call of Duty and juggling a soccer ball. And at least in that time, and kind of what I'm doing now with the standing desk, getting rid of my office chair, I got a walking pad underneath me. Like, that's a good change. But as far as the TikTok change, it's like it's only really helpful if the time I was spending on that is shifted into doing something that's more productive, instead of just getting on my computer and looking up YouTube shorts or something. So I don't have YouTube on my phone, but I will watch videos every once in a while. My phone's still in grayscale, and I still want to look at it constantly. And so I was thinking about too, with just the dopamine detox, of just trying to limit the things that I do each day that release a ton of dopamine, because I think that has been negative for my motivation as well. And being a little bit more detail oriented, so there's a lot of things, but at least the first step for me is journaling and scheduling.
Yeah, I think for me, simply put, is to well to follow my own medicine or to follow my own advice would be to take one step at a time. So like you know, I'm sure as people could kind of pick up, I'm not in the best of moods for this podcast, but it has to be done, and just have to hold myself accountable every week. But simply put, for me, it would be just to be in a less depressed state. So doing one thing that I could actually be doing more of, and I've done it recently, is doing a gratitude journal. What makes me happy, documenting that, and kind of taking the data and taking it as feedback to get better. Like, what am I failing at, or what am I what do I need to focus on more and focus on less to make myself less stressed out, have more energy, and just feel way better about myself. So I think my first step would be to just think about the things that make me happy and less than the things that make me sad. Um, put myself in a better and positive mind state to reinforce, you know, going upward and getting better mentally. So, and then focusing on exercise. It's warmer out here in Michigan, so I'm a little bit more motivated to go on like walks for on like my lunch break when I work from home. We have a nice when I'm actually in office. We have a nice bike and walking trail, literally at the end of my street that we work at. So I really have no excuse to not uh, exercise and do better, because I know that will also help me mentally. So I think going outside for a walk and documenting my progress, whether it's in my phone or actually writing it down. So I think those are going to be my two things I'm going to stick with.
Yeah. Well, sorry you're not in a better mood, but glad you're still around and you've stuck it out and found a company and a job that you enjoy doing. And I think that, at the end of the day, I think to myself, like I could be doing, I have so much more opportunity to be doing more and working to do more. And, I just get in my own head too often. And it's been like that for a long time. So it's going to be hard to break through that, but it's something that needs to be done. And we're just taking things one step at a time. So I think regardless of your circumstances and, the things that you're dealing with, there is always room for improvement. And some people obviously have it out worse than others, but to anybody, just one step at a time, one day at a time, and like you're currently dealing with or whatever you're going through, it's temporary. And yeah, there's people around you that love you, care about you, wish the best for you, and just try to keep those people around. And um, if it comes to pass and you do need help or you need to talk to somebody, then I definitely recommend doing it instead of just shutting down completely, because a lot can be accomplished by just reaching out, looking for help, looking for some guidance. And I think in general, like just you're trying to get better yourself, and people recognize and pick up on these things, but it's all down to your personal journey. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you to be able to go to the gym or eat healthier or provide better for your family? um, and yeah, I think the feelings of accomplishment and feelings of you being on the right path are so worth all the struggles that you go through to get to that point. So I kind of leave you with that, at least for me. And Brian, close out the episode here for us.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. It was so. It's, and thanks, David, for still tolerating with me and keeping on this podcast. I know it's it's been up and down with me sometimes. So
Yeah,
um,
don't check LinkedIn. There might be a don't look into podcast hosts needed for podcast late stage
yeah,
evolution.
yeah,
Don't read
Dave,
into that.
yeah.
I'm kidding, obviously.
um, yeah, that's gonna be us for everybody. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned next week.
Alrighty, bye bye.